Tonya Hofmann's fabulous. Tonya Hofmann's fabulous. Tonya Hofmann's fabulous, fabulous TV show. Tonya.
Everyone. Oh my gosh, I am so excited that you're here today. This is the Tonya Hofmann Fabulous TV show. I have my pleasure to have Judy Hoberman on today. Hi, Judy.
Hi, Tonya. Excited to be here.
So we've got so much to cover today. We're just going to kind of jump into it. I want to remind you to stick around to the end of the program because Judy is give an amazing offer for free for you. So stick around so you can find out what that is. As you know, with every one of my incredible guests, they always give so many amazing things to you to help, right? That's what it's all about, is to get more information out to the world. And that's what I love. That's why my motto is change the world from the front of the room, because it really can happen over and over and over again. And every single one of you needs to get out there and communicate your message to change somebody else's life. And I know there's a lot of you going, oh, Tonya, I can't be a speaker. No way. Please. I own the Public Speakers Association, but 5 years ago, 10 years ago, I would have told you you were crazy that I would be on stages because I'm a recovering introvert, like a lot of speakers are. And right? So I realized that you can do it. If I could do it, anybody can do it. But you just got to practice it and start figuring out what is that communication skill? What is it that you need to do? So we're going to jump right into Miss Fabulous Judy. So Judy Hoberman not only has been on a gazillion TV shows, but she has her own radio show. Ooh, it's so exciting. And it's called Selling in a Skirt on Tough Talk Radio. So make sure y'all all look that up. She has been in 30 years in sales, okay, because she started when she was 2. And then she's the president, right, president of Selling in a Skirt. She does all kinds of things, like she's an author of multiple books, Selling in a Skirt, Famous Isn't Enough, and Pure Wealth. Don't you love that title? So how are you doing, Judy?
I'm doing great. I'm so excited to be here because, like you, Tonya, I love to give. And sometimes people say to me, you just give too much. But the truth of the matter is there isn't too much. There really isn't, because if you can help one person do one thing for 1 minute, you've got it covered.
And, you know, when I love it when, I'm sure you do too, when you see that audience and you see that one person and you just see the light bulb go on, they're like, oh my gosh, you know that you have just shifted. You know, it's kind of that ripple effect. You just know that whatever they do from now on is going to be a little bit different, you know?
Absolutely.
And what I love, too, is that you talk a lot about men and women and the different communication skills, which I think, you know, a lot of people have never even thought about, is how do men and women communicate differently, and then how do you sell to women versus men?
Well, you know, it's really interesting because you make the profound statement that men and women are different. And truly, that's what it is. We are so different in just about everything that we do. But I want to make sure you understand that what I say is a generalization, because not all men do this and not all women do this. But statistics prove that men are more transactional and women are more relational. And that shows up in their communication styles, whether it's, you know, asking a question or whether it's listening. If you ever notice, for any of the women that are listening, if you talk to your husband or your father or your son or your brother or a male colleague, and you start giving them a story, they're you know, touching their watch, they're tapping their foot, and they're going like, come on already. They want to hear bullet points, right? And the other part is, you know, when men give you bullet points, as a female, we want to hear the story. So if you understand the differences, as little as that, it can change an entire relationship, personally and professionally.
Yeah, you know, I've always thought it was crazy that my husband would spend an hour with his mom on the phone, and I'm like, hey, what did y'all talk about? And he's like, oh, nothing. Like, you were on for an or, give me the highlights at least, and, even buying, he goes out and he's like, okay, well, this does it. Okay. Sounds good to me. Buy it. And I'm like, well,
Right.
What color is it?
Well, it's the same thing. If your husband was, hanging out with one of his guy friends and you were friendly with the wife, and it's just the two of them, and when he comes home and you say, hey, Michael, so how is, Susie? Well, I don't know. Well, how was, her son just had an operation? Oh, yeah, I didn't know that. And they don't ask any questions. It's really like, here it is. I want the facts and figures, features and benefits. That's all I want to know, personally or professionally. I don't care what the outside is. I want to know the beginning. I want to know the end, and if I'm really interested in the middle, I'll ask you. But it doesn't always come up. And it happens all the time, and women get very frustrated because they don't have the opportunity to ask the questions or even take in the information. That's the problem.
Do you find, too, that men like it more of a challenge? So if you're speaking on stage or you're proposing something, that you have to almost challenge them to make this decision, where women want to feel like it's kind of their decision. Do you find something along those lines, or what is your opinion on that?
Yeah, I think a lot of times that if you present it the right way, the men buy right in because they're much more decisive. They don't need a lot of information. If you tell them, here's the program and here's what it does, if it's for them, they're going to do it. With women, you have to give more of the information. Here's the program, here's what it does, here's what it'll do for you, here's how it's going to work, here's the length of time, here's this and this and this and this. So what I find is a lot of people want to do business with men more because the sales process is shorter. However, the relationships are much stronger with women. So we take a little bit longer, but you've got us for life. That's the difference.
I find that true, especially with analytical people. It takes forever to go through all of their questions. But once you get them on board, they're with you forever. It's kind of the same process,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because they really need to understand the process. Yeah.
Do you find that with the, people always assume, okay, women buy 80% of everything. So people really, and a lot of times men, and I talk to a lot of men about they want to attract the women, but they have a really hard time communicating because they don't have that story or that explanation that women thrive for, even like in the financial realm. I was just talking to a gentleman yesterday, and he's like, women just don't get what I'm saying. I'm like, because you're talking about numbers, and we're talking about what does this really mean for us in the future?
Exactly, because women want to know the entire story. They want to know what does this mean to them and the people that are important to them. So, I come from insurance and financial, and if you ever spoke to a woman and said, okay, here's your policy, and it's, X amount of dollars per month, let's write the check, they're going to say, okay, wait a minute, how does it work? So what women want to do is they want to be part of the process. They want to be asked the questions, and they want their opinions to be taken so that they are part of the solution. Once you make us part of the solution, we are part of the solution, and you've got us. But when you assume that just because the price sounds good or the product seems to be what we're looking for, you're making a big assumption. And the other thing that I always find is, a lot of times, when women are speaking, the other women are going like this, because you're doing it now when I'm talking to you. And we do this all the time, and I did it to you. Because what we're doing is we're acknowledging the fact that we're speaking. Men will be like, and you have no idea. They are hearing you. They are. They're just not acknowledging it. Sometimes you have to go, are you listening to me? But they are. They just don't have that gene where it says, okay, go like this, or I go, and it's very interesting. And sometimes, you tell men that, and all of a sudden you find that they're going, because they say, okay, I heard you. I got it. Yeah. It's funny. It's funny.
I know. I get really used to, and Michael, my husband, is much better at it now, but we would get together with people and talk, we'd be talking about the sales processes or something for their business, and he would be looking off to the side. That's how he listens, right? He's absorbing the information, but the woman in front of us is like, is he not paying attention to me?
So here's an even better one. A friend of mine is a speaker. She's a very big speaker, and she was speaking in Japan. And when you have a different culture, you need to know what it's like. But nobody told her what the culture was. So here she is speaking to, 300, 400, 500 men. She gets on stage, she's introduced, and the first word she says, all of their heads went down on the desk. on the tables. They just went down. And so she thought, oh my God, I'm already boring them. But she went on with her talk and everything. When she was done, she got a standing ovation. What happens is the way men in Japan were listening is they have to tune out the distractions. So they put their head down so they don't look at slides. They don't see like a moth flying around or anybody's phone flashing. There's nothing. That's how men listen. And so it's the same thing. You have no acknowledgement that anybody's doing anything. And so women are looking for something. Give me something. Give me something that shows that at least what I'm saying makes sense to you. And a good male salesperson will engage them in a conversation. They may not say anything after the first question, but then they say, well, really, how does this work for you? Why is this important to you? And let us talk. And
Right.
that's really, it's so easy and yet it's so difficult.
Exactly. And, when I'm, on stage, one of the things that was so hard for me is when you don't get any feedback, right? Because
Yes.
I think that as women, we're like looking for that validation a lot of times that people are getting and absorbing and agreeing with what we're saying, and sometimes they
But
just don't show anything.
They just, right. But as a speaker, you have to be able to read your audience. And so for new speakers, a lot of times you're up there and you're looking for that. You're waiting for something. And I remember when I first started speaking, I always said, okay, now this is going to be interactive. So when I tell you a joke, you need to laugh. If you don't know it's a joke, I will say, okay, there's the joke. And so you get people to warm up to you, and then you would say something and you'd wait, and they'd all go, ha, 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 because now they're listening to you and you're getting some feedback. So
Right.
there's all these little strategies you could do as a new speaker, and even as a veteran speaker. A lot of times you're going into an audience cold and you're thinking, oh, I told this joke last time, it was really good, and then it's like crickets. So you have to do something. And sometimes you just look at someone in the audience and you say, so what do you think about this? Or you talk directly to them or whatever it is. But, there's all these little things that you learn as you go more and more into the business.
And I think that's the hardest part for most people is doing it enough to get a variety so that you can see what is it like to speak in front of all women or all men or different ethnicities, and things like that.
Right.
And people have a fear of going outside of their comfort zone. And for me, it's really exciting because I'm like, oh, I don't know how people are going to react today. Just the other day I was in Dallas for an event, and I thought it was going to be half women, half men with the government, and so I'm prepared, and I'm like, okay, I asked all the questions I needed to ask of the event person.
Yeah.
Well, they said it was going to be, government employees. What they did not tell me, and what I didn't ask enough of, is they were all police officers and firemen.
Oh.
There were 3 women, including myself, and the most burliest men, right? And we had so much peacocking going on and, guns on the side. And I'm like, wow, this is going to be interesting. And I had to adjust what my presentation was and things that I did. And I always do this little activity, and I really was thinking about pulling it because it's really kind of touchy-feely. But instead of doing too much of the touchy-feely part, I made it more of a let's do something silly and fun, and the men loved it, knowing that there were always going to be a couple guys who are like, I'm not going to do that.
I'm not doing it.
Be okay.
Right, but that's the point of being, somebody that can think on their feet. You walk into something expecting this, and it's that. I walked into some place where I was speaking. It was supposed to be 50 people. It turned out to be 100 people. They changed the room from, a big room to a long rectangular room. So, all these things that logistically you already set for it, and then the audience was totally different. So you have to adapt. And so, sometimes it's easy just to make a joke out of it. This is going to be silly and fun, but, it's silly and fun. And you may not have said that before. Or something that was directed just at women. You don't say it if it's a mixed crowd. So you do have to know your stuff. And it's all about communication. And so whether you're a veteran speaker or brand spanking new, it's all about communication.
And I think, too, people, they get their stock of, this is what I always say. But
Right.
a lot of times it doesn't work that way. You know, even introducing yourself, there are times that you pull back on how much you tell people, and then other times you
Right.
give them the whole full-blown scale. Even the relatability part, you know, I tell people all the time about, you know, that I was robbed and tied up when I was 6 months pregnant, and that I've had cancer, and that I've, you know, been abused as a child, and, you know, I can go on and on and on, but I don't tell that to every group every time.
You can't.
You
Right,
have to pick
right.
and choose what's going to be relatable to the group that's right in front of you.
Yeah, and also sometimes you can even be honest and say, you know, I was really going to talk about this, but when I look around, I'm thinking that this is going to be better for you. And so you switch. You switch while you're there. As long as you're comfortable with what you're talking about, there isn't any right or wrong. You know, it is what it is. But as a speaker, you've got to read your audience. You've got to go out there and say, okay, this is not going to be good. I'm going to just switch it. And it happens in, 5 seconds. I mean, that's how fast it turns in your brain.
Yeah. And I find too and you probably found this too, there's always going to be a group of people that automatically just don't like you.
I know. And that's what you concentrate on.
Right. And you're like, what is not to like?
But
you have
it's
to get
interesting
through
that you say that. Yeah, it's interesting that you say it, Tonya, because there was a talk that I gave, and there was this one woman who was just like, rolling her eyes and everything else, and I kept directing things at her and whatever, and then finally I said, whatever, it's just not going to happen. She doesn't like me. It's okay, whatever it is. She was the first person at my table that said, oh my God, everything you said changed what I was thinking, and I just loved you. And I thought, wow, that body language was so not like that. So you just never know,
You don't. Yeah, I had a great conversation with a lady one time. Oh my gosh, we were just like buddies. And then I got up on stage and she went from smiling and happy to just scrunched up face.
And arms crossed. Yeah.
And she was just, and I was like, oh my gosh, she hates what I'm saying. I mean, she was just the facial expression. And then afterwards she comes running up to me and she goes, oh my gosh, that was brilliant. And I realized she was trying to absorb. That was her absorption face,
Yes, yeah. Well, she should have put a sign up and say, I'm absorbing or something. Because, you really hate when somebody doesn't like you. But
it is so hard. And, for me, because I've got a speech impediment, it's kind of a little bit like dyslexia. So a lot of times I'll be on stage and I'll say something and it comes out weird or gibberish, or sometimes I mix up words. And, I don't know when it's going to happen, but does that keep me from doing it? And I think that's what most people, they're like, oh, I can't do it because this might happen. I'm like, well, so what if it happens? It gives you a great opportunity to connect with your audience too.
And also, they like when you're vulnerable. Now, for me, when I speak in Texas, I am certainly not from Texas. I live in Texas. So when I speak, all I have to say is hello, and people ask me where I'm from. They say, oh, you're not from around here. But every single talk, no matter where I am, there's one word that always comes out that is typically New York, whether it's the R at the end or the lack of the R at the end. And as I say it, I stop and I go, that was really from New York. And they all crack up because they've heard it. I mean, I once said anesthesia when I was talking about a hospital, and they all looked around like, anesthesia? I'm like, yeah, what's wrong with that? And they go, there's no R in there. I'm like, oh, okay. And so it's another way that you're more vulnerable or more real or more approachable. Because as well as I do, you're on stage and people are like, oh, I can't even really go near her because she's here and that's way above me. That's not true. We're just like everybody else. We just happen to be standing on a stage. That's it.
I know. And it's so frustrating because I always tell everyone, come and talk to me. I want to know you. I want to know who you are. And people are like, oh, and so of course, you don't plan for things to go wrong, but I actually like it when it does. Most of the time. Now, I have got to tell my audience, because there are always embarrassing moments. I know you've never had that.
Oh, yeah, right.
And one time I was speaking at an African-American Christian women's conference. So a lot of lovely church ladies in this audience, and they were adorable. But because I really was, the only white chick there, which I love, but I know that 20% of the people just don't like that I'm even there. And 20% love it. So always focus on the positive people. But at the end of my presentation, I gave away a free copy of a program for speakers. and it was called the Wide Angle Speakers Program. And when I said it, the audience jumped. And I'm like, uh-oh, what did I say? And they said, the White Anglo Speakers Program. And I was like, no, I didn't mean that. And I explained my speech impediment and blah, 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 blah. And people laughed and they were cracked up. And the ones who didn't like me, they really didn't like me.
Yeah, and that's
care.
okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of it, too, is getting over your fears. And as women, we want everyone to like us. I don't know what that is about us. My husband's like, I don't care. I know I'm good. And I'm like, oh, I know.
Most men don't care. But the other thing is you said something earlier about your comfort zone. Well, here's the problem. You're so afraid of stepping out of your comfort zone that you don't do it. But here is really what happens. When you step out of your comfort zone into that uncomfortable piece, guess what happens to that uncomfortable piece? That becomes your comfort zone. And then there's something else. So just remember that, in a very short amount of time, that unknown becomes your comfort zone.
Oh,
so
yeah.
if it's the first time you're out on stage and you don't know what to expect, guess what? Once you're done with that talk, you now know what to expect. And so, you just have to play with it because it could be uncomfortable, but it's a great learning experience.
And a lot of times, and I think this is what gets people is they want everything to be known and perfect. And a lot of what we do is, and for life, right? It's just about going through it and experiencing it. And when you're dealing with different ethnicities and even men versus women, you have to kind of be up and excited about learning something that you didn't know it before.
Absolutely.
I was at that, one with all the sheriffs and the police officers and everything. I learned so much about their world. I had no idea. And now I do, so for me, going into that position again wouldn't be a big issue.
Right. And you didn't have time to get nervous about it because you didn't know anyway. So there's another piece of it. Yeah.
Exactly. And, what have you found is one of those moments that you're like, that was brilliantly crazy.
But it happens all the time for me. Really, I don't think that any time that I speak is like any other time that I speak. I was on main platform and it was in front of 3,000 people and I was the only female on the platform. And everything had to be very scripted because it was timed, and so everything that I said was on a teleprompter. However, I realized when I stepped on that platform that there was a story I needed to tell first. And so I said, hang on a second, I've got to tell you something because otherwise none of this will make sense. And you can hear the person in the back saying, oh my God, she's off script. Okay. And I heard that. I heard it. No one else heard, but I heard it. So I told my story. And then I said, okay, now I'm ready to go. And I went like this and the teleprompter started. But you have to be able to put yourself in that moment and be part of the whole thing. If I didn't tell the story that I told, it wouldn't have made any sense to anybody in the audience what my message was. Once I told that, they all had to buy in. And they were all going, oh my goodness gracious, because it was about men and women. And it was great. And everybody thought that the story really set the stage. And they all said that. But you don't know until you're up there. And so, that's the whole thing. There's so many lessons. There's so many things. And you just have to be as prepared as possible.
Exactly. And seems like whenever something unexpected really happens, it's like a brilliant moment for me. Some of my best titles, some of my best branding has come from something happening that I wasn't prepared for. So, y'all out there, please stop trying to be this whole perfect little person, and let the opportunity of life just absorb around you. That's what's really exciting. So I know, Judy, you're giving us something exciting away today. What is your offer?
Yeah. Okay, so I have this great ebook, and I have to tell you the story behind it is I wrote this book. It's all about different principles and strategies you can use in sales, and especially if you hate sales, if you're not really loving it or whatever. And so I write this book, and I put it on my website, and I forgot all about it. I mean, totally forgot all about it. And so, over the last couple of months, I thought, I know I wrote a book. Where the heck is it? And I look on my website, and there it is. I've never marketed it. Never. I've never marketed it. And I thought, why don't I just start giving it away instead of selling it as an ebook? Because it's got great stuff in it. So It is strategies, it's case studies, it's wonderful. It's called Skirting the Issues. Obviously, everything that I do has to do with the skirt. So if you go to sellinginaskirt.com/special-offer. So it's sellinginaskirt.com/special-offer. Just click on it and you will get the report. It's wonderful. The ebook. It's wonderful. And I just reread it again and I thought, wow, this was really cool. I forgot all about this. So it's a wonderful,
awesome.
It's a wonderful addition to your library.
Right. Wonderful. Thank you for giving that. How exciting. I can't wait to go read it.
Absolutely.
You sound like
and the
me.
other thing I want to
go ahead.
I was just going to say, the other thing that I just want to tell everybody as a resource, because I know a lot of times when you're trying to reach somebody and you're trying over and over and over again and it takes like 10 or 12 times, you can't always ask for business. You can't. It's just impossible. So you have to do like the drip, 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 drip. So we came out with this report. It's called The Report for Women. That's it, The Report for Women. And all you do is you subscribe to it. It's free. It's free, absolutely 100% free. And just put it in your favorite places, because what happens is it automatically updates itself. So
nice.
Every couple of days you can have new articles. And so for everybody, and especially a speaker that's trying to get to be a speaker and is trying to, sell themselves, you can always send, in between communications with an event planner or somebody, you can say, hey, I saw this article and I thought about you. And that's why we did it. So it's thereportforwomen.com. It is absolutely free, and it's a pretty cool resource for you.
Love it. Love it. Thank you.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you being on today. We've had so much fun. We always have fun together. We should do more things together.
I know. We always say that. And the thing is that here's another case that we really didn't talk about anything in particular, but we talked about everything in particular.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's what's so funny, because I've got people who come on the TV show all the time, right? And they all want to know, what are we going to talk about? What's going to happen? And I'm like, I don't know. Who knows? Let's have fun.
Yeah, everybody sends me like 10 questions I should ask on the radio show. And I say, thank you, but it's not going to happen, because one thing that you say leads to 27 different directions. So, send me questions, but we're not going to use them.
Exactly. Well, thank you for being on today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Everybody out there, oh my gosh, please follow Judy Hoberman, and that's 2 N's at the end, right? Or is it 1 N?
No, 1 N. 1 N.
1 N. So Hoberman with 1 N, and check her out. Find her on social media. Go to sellinginaskirt.com, correct? And find and connect with her. This is what it's all about. We love connecting. We want to know you. We want to help you. So thank you for joining us today. And everybody, come back next time. We've got another incredible guest. You do not want to miss her. Thank you for joining us today, and we will see you soon.
Bye.